Okay, today we're going to learn about units of measurement. We're familiar with these. These are just a standard quantity to, say what unit we're using. So we have inches, yards, and miles. This would be the English system. There's also like pounds and cups. That's also the English. And then the metric system, which most scientists use, is everything using the meter, like the meter, kilometer, centimeter, millimeter. So this just tells you what you're measuring in the unit. So, are you measuring volume, length, area, so forth. There are units called the scientific system SI units. These are standard units. And this kind of gives you a way for all scientists to know when you are reporting units. So for mass, they want you to report it in kilograms. For length, in meters. Time in seconds, temperature in Kelvin, and so forth. So these are just like standard units scientists typically will report in. There's also temperature. Like Celsius, we use a lot in science, and Kelvin, we also use a lot in science, and Fahrenheit, which we're pretty familiar with for temperature. Kelvin is an absolute scale, which means that 0 is absolute Kelvin. Kelvin does not have negative numbers like Celsius and Fahrenheit. When you have 0 Kelvin, that is the absence of heat, and that is as cold as you can get. Okay, so let's start working out some problems with the units. Again, the units tell us how we are measuring something. So when you give a unit, you're explicitly telling somebody how you're doing it. Okay, so let's first convert these back and forth. So if we have a child that's sick, running a temperature at 40 degrees Celsius, what is her temperature in Kelvin and Fahrenheit? So let's see, is she running a fever if it's 40 degrees Celsius? We're not as familiar with Celsius scale, so it's hard to tell. So let's first convert it into Kelvin. So I have the formulas here. Kelvin is the easiest scale with these formulas. I'm going to use this formula because I have a Kelvin and a Celsius unit here. So I come over here. I know that Celsius equals to 40 degrees because that's what the problem said. So now let's plug it into this formula here to get Kelvin. Okay, so Kelvin, what I'm solving for, so I'm going to leave it as a K, equals to 40, because that's the number given here, plus 273.15. Okay, so if we just plug that into our calculator, add those two numbers together, you should get 313.15. Okay, that is our Kelvin number. Now that didn't really tell us much. Now we were able to convert it into Kelvin, that was pretty easy, but it's still hard to tell if the baby is running a fever. So let's convert it into Fahrenheit. So we're going to use this formula right here, since we have a Celsius and a Fahrenheit within the formula. So we know Celsius equals 240. 40. Oops, I'm not sure why that's happening. 40 equals to, we don't know the Fahrenheit number as we're solving for, minus 32 divided by 1.8. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to isolate Fahrenheit. That's the number we're solving for, so we need it by itself. Okay? You always do multiplication division first. So if we look over here, we have this number. Notice right here is divided by 1.8. So when we bring it over to the other side to isolate it, we will do the opposite, which is multiply. So we bring 1.8 over, and now we're going to multiply over here since we divided on the over here. They're kind of like, think about a mirror. It's always the opposite, So 1.8 is multiplied over here. So 40 times 1.8 is 72. Okay, so now we have Fahrenheit minus 32 left. Okay, now let's look here. We still want to get Fahrenheit by itself, so we have a 32 left over. Notice it's negative over here, so when we bring it to the other side, it'll be a positive, so we'll add it. So 72 plus 32, put that in your calculator, and you should get let me write it down here, 104 degrees Fahrenheit when we add 32 plus 72. Now let's think, is this baby running a fever? Yep. Okay, so that should kind of give you an intro to, converting back and forth between temperature. Let's do one more example. Okay, so let's do Fahrenheit is 32. Okay, so we have a Fahrenheit, and it's 32. Let's first convert that to Celsius. So if we go back to our formulas here, Celsius equals to Fahrenheit. Our Fahrenheit number is 32. 32, and then our formula says minus 32, put this in parentheses, divided by 1.8. So if we just see here, 32 minus 32, that's 0. It doesn't matter if we divide by 1.8, it's still going to be 0. So Celsius, when it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius is 0. Celsius equals to 0 degrees. So this is, think about this, the freezing point of water. The Celsius scale is kind of based on water. So when you have 0, that is the freezing point of water. And in Fahrenheit, that is 32. Now let's convert this to Kelvin. So Kelvin, this formula is Kelvin equals to Celsius plus 273.15. Kelvin is what we're solving for. We have Celsius 0 from over here. We're moving that to right there. Plus 273.15. So Kelvin is 273.15. Okay, so hopefully that helps with converting back and forth. We'll do a couple more problems and the example problems in another lecture. Okay, so let's do some more conversions. So that's going back and forth with temperature. Here's your metric scale. So you can see centimeters, millimeters, micrometers, nanometers, decimeters, kilometers, and this just kind of gives you the unit compared to a meter. So if you look here, there are 0.01 centimeters in 1 meter, okay? Or 100 centimeters in a meter. Here is some more. This is back and forth between English and metric. And let me make this bigger. Here you go. So you can see like 1 inch equals to 2.54 centimeters. 1 foot is 0.305 meters. A yard is 0.914 meters. A mile is 1.61 kilometers. So this kind of goes back and forth between this would be your English unit, and right here is, sorry, I moved that, is your metric unit. Okay, so we're going to use that and figure out these problems right here. So a lot of these we're going to go back and forth between English to metric units. Okay, so practice these really quick and then see if you can do them, and then we're going to come back and work them out.